Why should Instagram have all the art fun?
Why not bring the art conversation to LinkedIn?
I'm Melissa, an artist and a culture sleuth.
I'm Nina. I'm a visual storyteller, a LinkedIn content creator, and a photographer.
Creativity is as vital to a successful business venture as it is to an artist.
So why is the conversation about art and business segregated to different media platforms?
That's what led us to create a live show on LinkedIn.
We interview fascinating experts and explore art and how it relates to business, technology, and education.
Welcome to An Artful Life, curious conversations about the ways humans make and use art.
And here we are.
Hello,
everybody.
Lucinda,
Hi,
welcome.
Lucinda. And hello, everybody watching, be it live or replay. Please, this is interactive. Put your questions in the chat, in the comments. And as I said, Lucinda, welcome. We're very excited to have you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Of course, of course. Melissa, why don't you give us a quick introduction about who Lucinda is, and then we'll just take it from there.
Oh, I would love to. Thank you. I have enjoyed a friendship with Lucinda for decades, and it's also given me an opportunity to admire her expertise on art from the financial side. My family and I spend our days and our lives and our years thinking about the aesthetic side, but I have less familiarity with strategically thinking about art from a financial point of view. This is Lucinda's specialty. She founded Wyeth Appraisals over 3 decades ago, and I have been witness to her helping our clients, their friends around the United States, deal with the financial aspect of being an art owner, an art collector, an art investor, an art inheritee. And I just think it's fascinating, and I've admired her integrity working in this way. So I'm delighted to have her here today, and we hope you'll have questions like we do. Lucinda, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Nina.
Of course. Tell us just a little bit about your background, how you got to the appraisal part of your life, so we have a bit of context as we dive into
I think most of us who come to the appraisal profession come in a winding road to get there, because appraisal involves not just a passion for the subject matter, which I definitely have a passion for the subject matter. I have an art history degree, but it also involves that scholarship. So that how do you use that art history degree in a profession? So I started off with teaching, which I really enjoyed. Then I went to museum work, and which also involved a lot of research, but I had the gift of, while I was there, the collection needed to be appraised. So I got to assist the appraisers for 2 years with documenting the collection and see the process, and the light bulb just went, this is the perfect job for me. Not only do I get to look at these incredible pieces, I get to research them. So it was really the light bulb moment.
I love that. It's like that moment where, you realize that your passion actually is attached to being able to make money with it.
Which is, how lucky is that?
That's how I feel about filmmaking and now about content creation, right?
Right.
I love doing it. So get paid for it? Hell yes.
Exactly.
And what you describe involves getting to use the right and the left side of your brain in almost equal measure.
Correct. Absolutely.
Yep.
When you receive a commission or take on a job to do a valuation, is there a first thing you usually notice, or do you have a procedure of how you begin?
The first thing, it starts with the initial contact. So it really starts with the phone call or the text message. A lot of times now it can be a text message. Mm-hmm. And before a job even starts, what I have to do is communicate with the client about what do they have and what's the purpose. Is it for insurance? Is it for an estate situation? And an estate situation can be either of two things. It could be equal property division among heirs, or it could be, we have a taxable estate and we need an appraisal to go to the IRS to make sure that they're going to, quote, get their fair share. So is it that? Is it a divorce situation, again, a division of property or a donation appraisal, you have something over $5,000 in value that you're donating to a museum or a similar organization. So that's the first conversation, because if someone calls me and they have a Chinese work of art, I can't help them. I'm not qualified. So then in turn, I'm going to put them in touch with someone who is. So that's also part of my job, is having an entire network of peers that I can reach out to say, this is outside of my wheelhouse, and then pass that on to them.
Nina, I can't hear you.
I can't hear you, Nina.
Sorry, New York, what's happening outside my windows, and
That's okay.
and I muted myself. So a follow-up question, because I think I really love what you said. Like, I'm not qualified. Is that a self-qualifier, or is there actually a qualifying body?
So I am required to be, so I'm a this is the language is USPAP. So it's Uniform Standards of Professional Appraisal Practice. And initially I took a class and an exam. And then after that, every 2 years, I take the classes again. And we have to write our reports to a specific standards. So there are rules and regulations. And in order to write appraisals for the IRS, you need to be USPAP. By qualified, they mean that I have the education and the experience to appraise those pieces, because otherwise, how would I be able to put that piece into an artist's entire body of work? Because when I'm valuing a piece, say it's a Birchfield, I need to place that piece in his entire body of work. How representative is it? So that then when I'm making my argument for the value, that will stand up to, say, IRS scrutiny or insurance scrutiny. So if I don't have those qualifications, I do not need to be doing that job.
Okay.
And then where is the line? Like, does that exclude you from doing, as you mentioned earlier, Chinese art or Japanese, I don't know, China or African sculptures? Or
Those are those, again, because I have studied African sculpture. I studied it in graduate school, but I don't have the market knowledge to appraise those. So I eliminate myself from that. Yes, I studied it. I actually had a grand passion for it, because the St. Louis Art Museum, where I studied in St. Louis, had an incredible collection of African art, but I don't have the market knowledge to appraise those pieces.
Now, you and I consulted with you a little bit on Russian Impressionism and Soviet.
Yes.
So you do a little bit of.
Yes, I do work
European
with Russian pieces. And again, as you know, we have some incredible Russian pieces in our marketplace. So there was opportunity to really educate myself about those pieces. So actually, I frequently work with Russian pieces in collections, and also know the best auction house in New York City for Russian pieces. So I have the proper knowledge for the marketplace, the proper knowledge of the pieces. So you can self-educate. I mean, and I take classes constantly. I'm taking classes. So the scholarship continues. That's the gift of the profession too. We never age out of it, because we get more knowledgeable as we get older, and we continually develop our scholarship.
I love that about scholarship professions.
Yeah, I do.
You just get better.
Yes.
So then when you've had the discussions with the clients and you approach a work of art, what's the procedure then?
The procedure then is inspection. So the kind of dry part, but the best part, because I get to look at the pieces. But it's just the inspection. It's confirming the signature. Is it dated? What's the medium? Is it an oil painting? Is it a watercolor? What's the condition? Does it need to be conserved? And then what's become really important is provenance. Most people are going to be like, what does that word mean? That is the chain of where did it start? Did it start with the artist, and where did it go from there? Did it go through an auction house? Did it go through a gallery? Was it exhibited at a museum? Sometimes I have to research in a catalog raisonné for the provenance, but that is value added to a piece. So there's inspection that occurs at the client's house, and then gathering any information from them, And then it's back to the office for research and analysis and appraisal writing. So it's putting it, is it fair market? Is it replacement value? I subscribe to 5 different databases for sales records because
sounds
not
expensive.
everything's listed in one database.
Yeah.
So I'm looking for a piece across all of this different kind of research and also in the retail marketplace.
Does, let's say you mentioned Birchfield, would a high career Birchfield be more valuable than late or early? And also, does it matter if the piece is more attractive or less attractive?
Aesthetic value always matters.
Mhm.
So,
So
and that's where, as you work, again, you get your art history education, or you come from a fine arts background, you've got to develop that eye. So you've really got to develop the eye of when you examine the piece, and also what's the more desirable subject matters. Every artist has more desirable subject matters, and beauty does matter. I mean, it's the value, why portraits of children value higher than portraits of, unfortunately, an older gentleman. The market's very different regarding aesthetic value. So it's there. It has to be taken into consideration. And that'll typically be, I will even relay that in my comparable sales data conversation underneath what I've used for comps. Is that making sense?
Oh, yes.
Okay. Okay.
but I mean, beauty, I mean, so on one hand, it's super subjective. But on
Yes.
the other hand, again, you will compare it to the market and say, young child more valuable than older gentleman, something in orange, red, and yellow more valuable than something in blue, green, and gray tone.
Right. Or this landscape subject matter is more valuable with this artist
Mhm.
than this subject that I'm looking at here. So is it a mountain scene or is it an ocean scene? Which does the market prefer? Because there's clear data for that as you look at the sales records. What's the what do people really want? What's the ultimate?
Well,
Does
just
that,
because
go
when
ahead.
do you start comparing apples with apples and oranges with apples? I mean, if it's like a mountain scene, which I would prefer because I'm from the Swiss Alps,
Right.
more valuable from a I don't know Secantini than a seascape from a Turner. I don't know. I'm making wildly stuff up. You know, it's kind of again, it's like where, yeah,
It's artists. So me, what I'm doing, you know, when you look at the appraisal profession, I'm comparing, and well, not always, but I'm comparing an artist to his whole body, to his or her body of work. So I'm then looking at over the arc of the marketplace of their lifetime, what have been the pieces that have brought the most value. And it's also typically listed in biographical information. And many times it is paintings of place. So where are they from, and does that represent paintings of place? So that all of that goes into an argument. What can be kind of fascinating is recently I had an appraisal with an incredible female artist from the late 19th century who did tiny miniatures on ivory of portraits and, what I loved, still lifes. I'm crazy about still lifes. Oh, Melissa, you'd love them. Well, good luck on the market data. She's in museums, but those pieces are hung on to because they're little. So I had to go and compare her and dig into the market to find a similar artist, another female, 19th century, same subject matters on ivory with more sales records. So sometimes I even have to go hop over to somebody else.
Yeah.
That's so interesting what you just said, that
Yeah.
if something is small and transportable, people are less likely to divest.
Yes, absolutely. It's the smaller portable pieces, especially as people downsize. And I think there's also something so appealing about that size that it becomes a heart piece. There's something so intimate about that little piece. But boy, she was listed, but she had 2 sales records. That's it.
Wow.
So that's just that fun stuff.
Wow. 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 I had so many questions and they all just went out my head. Talking about the ivory and, just like so fascinating. So fascinating. Yeah, Melissa?
Earlier, we talked a little bit about valuing Russian art, and my husband and I were so lucky to be a part of the wave when the Soviet Union fell of bringing out beautiful Russian paintings to homes and sales in this country. And there was a blossoming of price. And then I'm assuming maybe it leveled off or grew steadily.
did.
But what's happening to the price of Russian work at this time with the invasion of Ukraine? And what would you say to people about the flux due to history?
That all the art market in general has enormous flux.
Okay.
That it is highly volatile. And there are so many things that affect it. It was like during, as you would, and I'm sure all of you know, I mean, during the pandemic, because people couldn't get out and go to auctions, because they couldn't go to galleries and preview, because everyone became so concerned with what were their good investments do, their money, the art market dropped by 60%.
Oh my. So,
it was a dramatic drop. And even now, still those effects are there. Contemporary art has really held its value. But everything else is really highly volatile. And I always, I want my clients to have art because it brings joy to their life. Mm-hmm. I want them to look at those pieces and it adds to their life every day. If it happens to go up in value, that's incredible. Do I think your collection needs to be re-examined every 10 years? Yes. To see, do I need to come back and do another appraisal? Especially if it's insurance. What's happened? You may be paying too much for your insurance.
Oh, wow.
Maybe some of the values have gone down a little bit and you don't need as sizable a rider. Maybe some of them have gone up, but it's better to go kind of like the stock market, long-term with your collection, because yes, there's a lot of volatility, especially right now.
So that would kind of answer our question of how good of an investment is art, right?
I mean, you see it, it's splashy. It makes great splashy headlines. You see that XYZ investment company, you can diversify your portfolio by art investing. Mm. There are those who do that. They tend to be in the top 1% to 2%. Most of them have their artwork in offshore holdings. They are not hanging in their homes.
That's so sad.
Which I can't do that. I can't get behind that. But, because they're protected, they're not going to get damaged, because you've also got that can happen with artwork hanging in a home. You can have a fire, or you can have a piece fall off a wall and get a hole in it. So those high-end pieces, they're sitting in offshore. No one's looking at them. So that's the cocktail party conversation when people find out what my career is. Mm-hmm. Oh, should I invest in art? And I'm like, I suggest you buy what you love. Mm-hmm. Buy what you love and have it bring joy to you every day. Insure it, take care of it. And then later, if you decide that you want to downsize a piece, maybe it will be worth more. But you're thinking all the value it's added to your life over all that time.
I have another investment question. If you're looking at two collections, let's say two 50-year-olds inherit a collection from a parent, and they're of equal quality. If one collection has a clear theme, like women artists from the Midwest or airplane paintings, is it more valuable as a group when there's a clear theme, or does it make any difference?
It doesn't make any difference.
Okay.
I love appraising collections with a clear theme. I think they're wonderful for following the arc of a collector's passion. So that's just a benefit for me. But again, the value comes down to the artists, the fame of the artists individually in that collection, and what their market value is on, because it's interesting, an appraisal it's on that date and time. So an estate appraisal, it's the date of death. An insurance appraisal, it's the date that I show up to do the appraisal.
Okay.
So it's all encapsulated on that date and time.
I remembered what I couldn't remember before, and I want to jump in before I forget it. And then I have another question that has nothing to do with this question. So, what is more valuable? Pictures from, because you said there was like also sort of a location value, right? So I'm asking for Melissa, what's more valuable, Venice or Spain?
I would say from what collectors are going to buy, Venice.
Yeah.
It's instantly recognizable.
Right.
That it
Venetian
is.
canals, the light on the water, it's instantly recognizable, and I think eminently collectible because of that.
And
So,
nobody forgets the first time they saw the Grand Canal. It's a life.
I will never forget it.
Well,
I will never forget my gondola ride. As corny as it sounds, it's fabulous.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Anyway, just wanted to ask for Melissa and Dow.
Absolutely.
So then my question is, I mean, where, like I have art all over my apartment. Most of it is friends that I support.
Mm-hmm.
I have one or two name artists. Where is and my one name artist is a very, I think, pretty famous Swiss artist. He's insured separately, but anything else, it's just part of my, regular insurance.
Yes.
Where comes the moment? So my question really is, where comes the moment where I'm like, okay, I need a Lucinda come to my house and start
Correct.
looking at stuff and tell me.
That's a great question.
That's a great question.
That is a great question. And it's a question I go over with my clients all the time.
Yep.
Because it starts with your insurance broker. It
Mm.
starts with that phone call to them to say, what is my cutoff in my homeowner's insurance policy for fine art?
Mhm.
So how much am I covered up to? Is it, and it can be 3,000, 5,000, 10,000. What's my cutoff? Where do I need to have an appraisal? So and that's the question I ask when someone calls me, is say, first stop, call your broker. Then we know absolutely which pieces we need to appraise and which other pieces can just go over into your regular homeowner's insurance policy.
Mhm.
And then photograph those pieces, put them in your computer, back up your computer, and have information about them. Artist name, measurements, kind of, as I tell clients, do what I'm doing, but on your own. Measure it, photograph it, medium, put it in your computer. So if you have a claim, you're ready to go with that. And then you compare it with the appraisal that I did on your high net worth pieces.
Would you tell people to photograph front and back if they can see the
You
back?
bet. Because I always good. Again, great question, Melissa. Because I learned I always joke with my clients, I'm going to learn more about your piece from the back of the painting than I am from the front. So, I mean, and because a lot of times there should be labels. There's a label? Is there the date the piece was created, the title of the piece? Again, that provenance, a gallery label. I love when clients loan pieces to museums. Is there a lending label? Share your pieces when you can. All of those things are on the back and they're provenance. That's the good stuff that adds value.
Melissa, I need provenance for all the stuff I have from you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, as Melissa knows, I can't stand it when a piece isn't signed.
Yes.
And we're not going to talk about who did that. It wasn't Melissa.
Oh wow. So then the next follow-up questions that I think logically is, all right, so I'm up Schitt's Creek, something's happening. I need to get some cash. So I have this one guy, famous Swiss artist, Note Vidal. How do I go about liquidating something like that?
Okay, so that's fair market value. So insurance is replacement. That's high. So when I go in to do an insurance appraisal, it's retail. and I want to cover people for a number of years. When I'm going in and consulting about selling, marketplace, I'm going to do an appraisal for that. Again, it might be retail. I'll manage the artist, and then I'm going to take into consideration some auction values too. So I'm going to look across that marketplace, do the same process, which I talked about before, place it in that artist body of work. But I'm going to be modest in my valuation, because you're in selling, you're either going to send it to an auction house, and then they're going to take their commission. So that's why I'm going to include auction values in my analysis. Or if you go with a gallery, they in turn, and I always have to explain this to my clients, they have a lot of expenses related to
They have
that
a
piece.
massive overhead.
Massive. And they don't understand, well, I've looked at these values. It should bring $60,000. No, because that gallery has to charge a percent to cover it on their insurance, to market the piece, to wait for it to sell.
For the three
So-
educated salespeople standing on the floor 8 hours.
That's right. Or taking it to a show.
Yeah.
What if they take it to a show? So you have to take all of that into consideration of what are you actually going to get for that piece. And then there's also the other thing that, and this is the advisory capacity of my job, is then I'll also consult with the client about shipping, et cetera, how to navigate the process. So if it ends up, we're just going to say it looks like Sotheby's is the best choice, then who am I going to put them in touch with? Or if they're going to go out to, or they're going to go to Deborah Forrest Fine Art in New York, then I'm going to put them in touch. I'm going to communicate with her first. And then after that fact, I'm going to assist them. How do we get it there?
Yeah.
Because there's that's a very overwhelming process for the general person.
Yeah,
It sounds easy on the front end, and it's
Not so much.
not.
I loaned a piece once. Aforementioned piece. I loaned it to him twice, and oh my god, the production that went into it was just like, I would have just bubble wrapped it and dropped it off, but they came up with crates, and it was crazy. Yeah.
Now we have wonderful master pack and air float boxes, and
Yeah, they are great.
yeah, they're fantastic. Yeah.
Could do you and your colleagues ever provide could someone come to you, for example, or a colleague, and say, Lucinda, I've got this early stage Monet and I want to put my kids through college. Could you just sell this for me?
So when I'm doing that, I'm taking off my appraiser's hat, because I can't act as an advocate. So when I'm working as an appraiser, I'm a completely neutral party. It's one of the requirements of my profession.
Okay.
So then I'm going into brokerage. So I'm actually brokering a piece for you. And typically with brokering, I'm going into, I'm doing all the work for you.
Yes.
We have a contract, and then I'm going to go to the gallery marketplace is when I get involved with brokering, because auctioning is much more straightforward. So I'm going to see if that's the appropriate marketplace before we even do it. And then I'll do all the negotiations, and then actually the gallery pays me.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. So the gallery actually, I will negotiate with the gallery a shared commission for when the piece actually sells.
What if it's a museum worthy piece and you find a museum home for it?
Do you mean the museum buys
the piece directly?
That typically, again, goes through a gallery.
Oh.
So the best connections, because I know a number of galleries that have incredible museum connections. So that is, again, best handled through the gallery negotiating directly with the museum. So I get it to the appropriate gallery, and then they're discussing with collectors in the marketplace, but they're also discussing with museums.
Okay.
And then sometimes a client will decide, that there was an Andrew Wyeth that I was working with, and a museum ended up taking the piece. They were a little below asking. They asked, would it be possible? And we went back to the client. The client wasn't quite so happy, so I cut my commission. The gallery cut their commission, and it went to the museum.
Oh, wow. That's a happy ending.
Those things, you can compromise in those instances, because who doesn't want the piece to go to a museum?
Yeah. That's the best thing.
Absolutely.
Are we ready to move on to the second set of questions, Melissa?
Before we do, I wanted to ask if what would you say to, let's say, a young couple, they've been married 3 years, they can't afford Wyeths or whatever, but they don't want posters on their wall and concert posters anymore, and they're a little hesitant. What would you say to them how to begin?
Start by looking. So start by finding your passion pieces. So how are we going to do that? Well, okay, we're going to go to museums. We're going to go to art fairs. Go to Fort Bridges Art Festival.
Yeah.
Go to galleries. Don't be afraid to go to a gallery. People are really nervous about going to galleries. Go to galleries, and you don't have to buy anything. Just start discussing as a couple what makes your heart sing. What are the pieces? Again, as I always talk about, every piece in my house I walk by every day, and I'm so happy to see it. It makes my life so much better. So start with that. Then you're going to find some favorite artists and set a budget. And then typically what we do in our household, or you wait till you're traveling, buy a piece on vacation that you're always going to remember the vacation. Or we're big on a piece being a gift, a birthday, a special occasion, or we like to buy pieces for our anniversary. So it's occasion and something you'll always remember, but you can start really small, but buy original. That is another thing I tell people: buy original. And a signed and numbered print is an original. I mean, that's the other. I love prints. One of the things I felt passionately in love with in graduate school was printmaking. And it's just fine to buy an original signed and numbered print. They're spectacular.
They are.
I have lots of prints. Yeah.
I think I would add to what you say, go to speaking from my own experience, I went to Otis Art Institute for a while in Los Angeles, and at the end of each semester, they would have an art sale.
Absolutely.
Bring your best pieces out, and so all the students would be lined up along the broad corridors, and the students need the money, and some of the work is phenomenal.
I agree completely.
So if
Great
you live
idea.
in a city with an art school, make a phone call to administration and see if those end of semester things happen.
Great idea.
And art fair, I love art fairs because it's less intimidating than walking into a gallery. And
you're buying from the artist.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, I just love those because there's just, and often it's just this really cool vibe, and and I come home, I'm like, okay, we got to move some stuff around here.
That's what I do all the time.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. Great advice. So I want to shift the conversation ever so slightly to a set of questions around what can artists do to make your life easier? Or to maximize the value of their artwork.
Oh, so regarding one thing is that when I am doing an insurance appraisal, definitely communicate back with me, because we're going to be talking about the high retail values of your pieces, and then the clients in turn are going to see those current values of the pieces, and may in turn then decide that they need some more of those pieces. So it's encouraging artists to communicate with appraisers. If you're also asking how appraisers can benefit artists, is that in the question also?
No, we'd been sort of getting information for collectors, and now we're wanting to pick your brain of things you wish artists knew. And so like if they're, for
Like, should
example,
they always sign their pieces? Should they put something?
Right, exactly. And that's one, it actually, I want to cry when I'm working with the piece and it isn't signed, because you don't want eventually, as it passes through generations, that slips out of recognition.
yeah.
It's not just sign, date it, so that then again, it can be placed in the arc of your career in the future. So sign, date. You don't have to legibly sign, because also I can look in databases and I will authenticate in a way your signatures that look like your signature. Put a label on the back. Love the labels on the back. I was just working with a collection yesterday. There was not a label on the back of a single piece, so I don't know the titles.
Oh,
So
wow.
when I'm doing my appraisal, I know the artist, I know where they are, I know their dates. Title, unknown. You don't want the title of your piece to be unknown. I mean, you had a title, or I know it's hard to title your
The
pieces.
title is poetry.
But
We
the
want the
title
poetry.
is so important. So put a label on the back with all of that information, medium and size. Sometimes on the mixed media pieces, it's really difficult for me to determine media. So if it's cut paper and spray paint and crayon or charcoal, put it in there, because then I'm accurate. I haven't described your piece inaccurately. And then if you go through and you sell your pieces through a gallery, make sure they pop a label on the back also, because again, that's so important, because I'm looking at a piece not knowing any of this, and I want to write every truth I can about that piece, because that document lives on. So every bit of information I can have is incredible.
What about, say, a plastic sleeve stapled to the back of the frame with a little story about the piece, maybe some
Incredible.
publicity? That would
Yeah, everything.
it adds
Everything. And, I will see pieces where there's a plastic sleeve on the back that the framers put on that has the exhibition catalog. So in the provenance, I'll put the galleries, but then I'm also going to put, like, Melissa, your pieces that were just at a show in Charleston, if there was a name of the show, then I'm actually going to put the name of that show and the exhibition dates underneath the description of the piece.
Oh, nice.
So it all travels with it, hopefully just on. On and on and on. So things can continue to live.
What about if you're talking, imagine yourself speaking to a classroom of college or art school seniors in their 20s. What about quality of their art materials?
Yes, always thinking about conservation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's another thing, is that making, experimentation is not always all good. Make sure, I mean, it's making sure that the materials that you use will stand the test of time, that your canvases are prepared properly, that your paints are mixed properly, that you're using acid-free materials, all of those things that matter, that you're using the best quality papers in your printmaking, that
you can afford.
That you can afford, so that things live on. And then also make really, really sure that if you're selling anything framed, to use a great framer that uses, again, all of your acid-free materials, because I've seen some incredible damage regarding mats around.
Really?
Acid burns, acid burning. Yeah. So, I mean, that's another thing, that it's like, it's not just you have to make sure who you're using, and that they're using the quality materials, and also our climate. The paper's important because of foxing, our humidity. So there are things that can happen to pieces after the fact. So use the best that you can possibly afford.
I did 2 portraits of I did a portrait of my parents, so a pair of pastels, and I'm still proud of them. I think I really captured what I love about my parents, but they were a little uncomfortable about hanging portraits of themselves in their home. It felt boastful to them. And so they put them in a closet where the air conditioning did not reach. And when I discovered them in there behind the winter coats, there was mold blossoming in the pastel.
Absolutely.
And I think it's just there now forever, because with a pastel, I don't know how to get it out without changing the nature of the work.
On a pastel, I don't either. I don't know that a conservator would know how to get that up because of the medium of pastel.
Ooh, that's another great question. If somebody has something and they need it repaired, would an art appraiser be someone who could refer them to a
Yes.
restorer?
So that's another part of my job, is that I refer to companion businesses. So that's where I refer, would tell appraisers, go the extra mile for your client. You're not there just to appraise the piece. There are going to be other questions that come up. Who's the correct, which framer would you use for this piece? Which art shipper? Insurance agents that really understand about fine arts writers, estate planning attorneys. That's another question I get a lot of. Conservators. So, and whether it's a work on paper or whether it's paintings, etc. So yes, all of those questions come up, and it's our job as appraisers to develop those relationships with the companion businesses. But it's not just relationships. No, they're really good. Know that you'd use them yourself.
Yeah, because I mean, it reflects back on you.
Right. Exactly right.
So in all of this, I can't help to think about what, and this could be probably a conversation all on its own, filling an hour, but I just want to throw it in there for a quick answer for now, which is, how does photography fit into any of this?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I adore photography. Actually, I have a number of pieces. Photography is absolutely considered appraisal worthy. It's very collectible. It's become a serious area of collecting. A number of the auction houses have auctions that do nothing but photography. There's a small auction house in New York that I have a grand passion for called Swans, that deals on works on paper, and also has an incredible photography specialist. So it is a valid area of collecting.
Does the value diminish because it's printable?
Again, it matters the signature, the addition of the piece. Is it highly limited? Was it a very limited?
Is it 50 or is it 10,000?
Yes, correct answer. And that it's really important on those. I think it's a good idea, again, to have them numbered and hand signed. Hand
signed, and okay to do it on the back.
Yes.
Because I hate, when you go on.
It interrupts the image is what you're thinking. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Eyes with these like cute, and I'm like, no.
No, again, that's why, you'll see on my appraisals, it will say signed verso, signed on the back. That's why every single piece, because I think my poor collectors, because I charge by the hour, it's take the pieces off the wall. And I think they're thinking, don't you want to see them hung on the wall? No, take them off the wall, because I need to flip it and look at it from behind is as important as what's on the front. So you don't want to pay me to climb on ladders and carry all the pieces down and climb on ladders and hang them back up. Yeah. So I need to be able to look, again, we talked about the back of that piece. Signed verso is totally fine.
Yeah.
And I think so many artist signatures, like doctor signatures, are illegible. And so then a good printed name on the back is that
label. Yeah. That label makes my life so easy. I'm not having to try to decipher an illegible signature. Yeah. And that's another thing, unfortunately, that sometimes I have to put on an appraisal, a legible signature. Oh. And so instead you're just appraising a fantastic Hudson River School with an illegible signature.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking.
To move away from heartbreaking into glee and joy, we wondered if you might share a couple of your memorable appraisals that you remember with pleasure.
There are so many. I mean, and that's
What stands out? What's
I
your favorite
can't believe
there?
I have this job.
Yeah.
So last year I got to work with a Mary Cassatt, and that was, and not just a Mary Cassatt, but a pastel on paper of a young child. So that's like, you know, gold star, a gold star Mary Cassatt.
Yeah.
So that was one that was really special. And it was also a wonderful research project, because that on that quality of artist, you're going to go down the rabbit hole into the catalog raisonné. So it's when you get into your pieces that are your, say, 300,000 range or your higher value, it's really, really good to go that extra mile. And is it in the catalog raisonné? What page number, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just, it's some more research on the piece. But yeah, that was but I just get to work with the most amazing art, because we have amazing art in the Southeast. And a lot of people don't understand that. I go to my conference in New York, and I actually have appraisers ask me, how do you possibly do your job where you are? And I just think there's not correct. There's not an understanding of what's here. And the collections, we have unbelievable collections, and we have unbelievable museums.
Yeah.
So yes, I get to see Birchfields and Warhols. I absolutely, Twatmans.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a recent love affair for me, and looking at a number of them, of just the quality of the atmosphere in the pieces. And another artist that I've really fallen in love with is Willard Metcalf. So it's just so many pieces.
For our listeners who are new to the art world, could you give a short description of a catalog raisonné? What is it?
Yeah.
A catalog raisonné is the catalog. It's a catalog of the artist's entire body of work. So like you can go online in Chad's Ford and look at the entire catalog raisonné of N.C. Wyeth's work, as an example. So it's actually the documentation of everything that we know of, and it can be amended. So you'll notice you may have volume 1, and then it may be 25 years later, volume 2 comes out, because there are some more pieces that have been highly researched, that have been added. So it's the recognized, acknowledged, not fakes, because that's another thing that happens. It's a recognized piece. It has been acknowledged as by the hand of, say, Mary Cassatt. And that's why when you're getting into very, very high value pieces, it's a good idea to consult a catalog raisonné. Just another level of talk about provenance of a piece. So that's what I'm meaning with catalog raisonné.
Okay.
And raisin A, is that like a raisin and then the letter A?
I'm gonna have to try to spell this off the top of my. It's French. RAISSONE, I believe.
I'm looking it up.
Look it up. It's French. Catalogue raisonné.
Raisonné. Yeah.
Raisonné. Raisonné.
Yeah.
Nina, do you speak French?
Yeah.
You go, girl.
Of course, that's
I know. I'm baby French. Baby.
Lucinda, have you ever had the privilege of telling somebody that the sweet little drawing over their breakfast table was actually really valuable?
Yes. It's always, those are the best days. Yes, absolutely. I have, yes, the pinch me moments happen where I have someone come in, or I go to their house and with a piece that been passed down in the family, but they actually they've been kind of told it's a good piece, but they know nothing typically about it. It isn't someone coming into me saying, I have a Mary Cassatt. It's someone coming into me saying, I've been told this is good, but I really don't know what it is. And, there was, and now I'm not going to be able to remember the name of the artist because it was a while back, but he was a famous American illustrator. It was an incredible Western scene. It was exactly what he was known for. And it was, it's a smaller piece. It's a drawing because it was an illustration. And then he was $60,000 richer.
Wow.
So
that is a happy story.
So yeah, it happens. It does happen. Not frequently. Most of the time it's the opposite, but it does happen.
Yeah. I just had a friend who is a restorer, and I just made a note of that, Melissa, for another guest on the show.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Oh, that's
Good
a great
job,
guest.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she was in my house, which is 450 years old. And, we've got all these great parents hanging on the wall. And there's this one piece that I just hate. It's super kitschy, not my thing. And she came over for a party and she was like about to drink, and she sort of stopped, stared, put the glass down, and then she was really, really quiet. Seems that this one piece that I don't like is original 1600 alabaster, God knows what, school of what. Anyway, she was floored. She was absolutely floored. So my sister and I said, okay, when shit hits the fan, we'll take that
Exactly. That can go.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I like it anyway. It's it's in a pompous gold leaf frame, and
Yeah,
Nina, you are in the perfect situation because when you do want to liquidate something like that, you really don't want to love it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Because there are other very sweet pieces, and then there's all these ancestors. And she kept saying you have to at least preserve, if not restore. But I'm like, I'm not going to spend tens of thousands of dollars. That's a whole other conversation, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Lucinda, towards the end of our interviews, which I think we're getting there, we
unfortunately are, yes.
Yeah. We always ask, we talked about what you'd say to young artists about how to make their work more valuable, but what about a young person considering a career in art appraisal? What would you say to them? How to get started?
I would say to them to be sure that they're very passionate about the subject matter that they're going to, so your niche. And then to make sure that they're very passionate about scholarship, because those two things have to go together.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just being surrounded by beautiful objects.
Right.
So it's those things really, really have to go together. And then also the commitment to the education that has to go into, as I said, the technical aspects of writing appraisals, the USPAP, their rules and standards of writing appraisal reports, because that was the part for me that, again, was a big jump for education, because I joke, my husband's an attorney, and I joke with him, they're not legal documents, but they sure are like it. If you read the language, it reads like a legal document. Mm-hmm. So it's learning it's getting through that process and continuing the education of that. But really the passion is what's going to carry you through in your career, because I always go into a job and look at a piece, and I'm going to adore a piece for a minute. I'm just going to take a second. I know I'm on the clock, but I'm going to feed my soul with it. I'm selfishly going to take a few minutes and go, yeah, I'm here. I get to look at this, and now I'm going to move on through the rest of that day. But it reminds me of why I do this job, because it's not always an easy job. I can be there on really difficult times. I mean, when you're in the middle of a divorce appraisal, it is not a happy environment to be in. So that just take a second and give that to yourself. And And also, as you're starting in your career, I already mentioned it, but I'd say it again, develop those companion resources, because that helps your client. You've gone the extra mile for your client, and you've helped other businesses, and then all of that business comes back to you. So it just makes this lovely circle, because it's a word of mouth business. I'm going into people's houses, looking at their most treasured possessions, frequently in a very difficult time in their lives. So
And also your expertise will affect their financial security one way or another.
that's right.
They really
right.
want to trust you.
That's right. So it's a trust-based business.
Yeah. Which is why you're not big on social media and don't have
That's
to.
right. Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't serve me well.
Yeah. Or just doesn't have a purpose, right? Well or not.
No, what it ends up in is I just had to coin a phrase for it, is that I have phone calls and text messages of that, it seems like I should be like a public television program, that you should be able to call me and you're just going to describe it over the phone, and I should be able to take 5 seconds and just tell you what it's worth. I mean, why shouldn't I be able to do that?
No.
But that's
Not
not what an appraisal is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Lucinda, this has been beyond phenomenal.
I learned a lot.
And yes, me too. Me too. And I'm very glad that I insisted that we put stickies on the back of my photographs when I had my first exhibition. It's your first show. Why would you do that? I'm like, because you never know. Once it's the 100th show, we'll be glad those fucking stickies
Exactly.
are on the pictures of the first show. Anyway, so the final question is, and we have about 3 minutes left, is what is the sort of that one piece, and maybe there is no one piece, but if there were, okay, your house is burning, you're running out of house, what other than your family and your pets, what are you?
The dogs, the cats.
Piece of art. If you had time for a piece of art, which
I know, and I knew you were going to ask this question, and it is such a hard question, because I already said all pieces are heart pieces.
Yeah.
But I really thought about it. I did have a definitive answer.
Oh.
This was a good exercise, because now I know. I have in the living room is an oil on board group A, American artist who's known for painting Gloucester scenes, Gloucester, Mass. And I'm originally from Massachusetts. And it's of sailboats on a foggy day. So it's very impressionistic. But it didn't belong to me. It belonged to my father-in-law, John Olin. And his wonderful story is that the second chapter of his life, the first chapter, he was an attorney with the Federal Reserve Bank in Minneapolis, very dry, technical job. In his second career, he designed and made sailboats. And so he was delivering a sailboat to Gloucester, went in a gallery. He loved art, went in a gallery, saw the piece about 1975. And of course, asked him about the painting. He said, well, I knew I shouldn't buy it. I was in the beginning of selling sailboats. These were my first deliveries, but I listened to my heart and I bought it anyways. And I always loved that. I bought it anyways, brought it home. And every time we'd visit in Minnesota, that was always hanging right behind him on the living room wall. So we'd be drinking cocktails, having great conversation. I'd look at that painting. So that's love the painting, love the person.
Love the story. It's the full package.
It is. It's the full package. So that's my piece.
Wonderful. Excellent.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, Melissa, thank you. Nina, thank you. It's been really fun.
This has been fantastic. And Gloria is watching. Thank you for watching, Gloria. And once we're done with this, this will preserve forever on LinkedIn or wherever you're watching this. So, just when we're done, press play and you'll be taken miraculously to the beginning of the class. And to all of you watching out there, be it now or the replay, thank you so much. Love having you. Leave some comments. Let us know what kind of guests you would like us to see, to interview in the future. And we'll be back next month with a new edition of An Artful Life, curious conversations about the ways humans make and use art. Thank you so much for joining us. And
Bye-bye.
thank you for joining
Bye.
us, Lucinda.